Boys, girls, babes, welcome back to the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast. We are so happy to have you all here with us today for episode 111 of this show. And that does not happen without all of you fine folks taking an interest in the show and supporting the show, subscribing, commenting, sharing us around with anyone and everyone you know who is a Washington Capitals fan. And yeah, if you haven't done so already, please do subscribe to the show if you like what you hear. Subscribing, of course, ensures that you will not miss any future episodes, and it also really does help out our show a lot, helps it to grow, and it also signals to Apple Podcasts and to Spotify and to YouTube and to wherever else you might be listening or watching. It signals to those guys that people are interested in the show and that they like the show, and then Apple and Spotify and YouTube, in turn, that makes them want to show the show to more people, which is always helpful, of course. So yeah. Please do subscribe wherever you are listening or watching if you do like the show. We really, really appreciate that. And again, it just helps us to grow even more. And thank you so much to everyone who is tuned in today near and far. And welcome back. Like I said, I do have to apologize for the episode dropping a tad later than I expected it to this week. I just had to, I'll be honest, I had to completely change what I'm doing after I heard this ridiculous Quinn Hughes to the Washington Capitals rumor, because I'm like, well, we've got to talk about that, right? And so, yeah, apologies for the episode coming to you a tad late this week, but wherever you are, and whether you were listening in audio only on either Apple, Spotify, or any of those podcast audio platforms, or whether you were watching the video version over on YouTube, because we do that now as well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Like I said, thank you for being here. And as always, we have got a lot of Washington Capitals talk to get to today. It is not just going to be an hour of talk about this Quinn Hughes rumor. There are lots of other things on the table as well regarding our Washington Capitals. So strap in, get comfy, grab yourself a beverage if you feel so inclined, and let's talk some Washington Capitals hockey, baby. And my, oh my, it is going to be a great day to talk some Caps hockey, isn't it? Because our Washington Capitals are now 10-1-1 in their last dozen games. So that will always make the sun shine just a little bit brighter, won't it? Like, it just brightens up those winter days. And we are going to talk about what is clicking for these Washington Capitals right now, even amidst a pretty serious run of injuries here for these guys. And we add another important name to that list here recently, of course, with Ryan Leonard going down with injury after what was a gruesome hit by Jacob Trouba that went both unsuspended and unpenalized during the actual game itself as well. And so we will get to that on the injury front. And then, of course, like I said, we will get to that Quinn Hughes rumor. But first, let's start off with something positive here before we get into Ryan Leonard nearly having his head taken clean off of his shoulders. And so let's start just by looking at what is working so well right now for these Washington Capitals during this 10-1-1 run, because there's so many things that we could get into here, because boy oh boy are things ever working well for the Washington Capitals right now. Like I said, 10-1-1 in their last 12 games. That has rocketed them up to the top of both the Metropolitan Division and to the top of the Eastern Conference as a whole. And so obviously, anytime that you're 10-1-1 in your last dozen games, obviously a lot of things must be working for the Caps right now. And indeed, that has been the case. And, as I had talked about at length in previous episodes, their analytics, their underlying numbers had been so strong all season long, right? Even when the puck was not going in for them at the beginning of the season, and well, it's going in now, right? So law of averages, right? That was never going to last. Their little early season slump where they were not scoring much, that was never going to last for any real significant amount of time, because you just simply don't see teams that are generating as many scoring chances as the Washington Capitals do. You just simply don't see teams like that not being able to put the puck in the net for any real length of time, right? Teams that generate that many scoring chances always do get goals. And so this was always going to balance itself out for the Washington Capitals, the law of averages, like I said, right? And we are seeing that now with the actual goals for, starting to match up with the expected goals for our Washington Capitals. And, I have to give credit to both the players and the coaching staff, right? For keeping a cool head and, remaining patient as they were going through that early season slump, because that had to have been mighty frustrating, right? Like, it's like, as a player, like you're checking your analytics after every game, checking your underlying numbers, and all of the underlying numbers say that you're doing really, really well, right? All of the underlying numbers say that you are a dominant team. All of the underlying numbers say that you should have scored about 1,000 goals today. But you look up at the scoreboard after the game and it says that you didn't score any goals and that you lost the game. So like that has got to be really, really frustrating. But the Caps coaching staff, headed by reigning Jack Adams winner Spencer Carberry and his Washington Capitals players, they all managed to stick with it through all of that, through that early season scoring slump, through losses piling up at the beginning of the season. They stick with it. They stuck with their process, right? Because they knew that their process was good. That's why they stuck with it. And, they also stuck together as well, which is equally important. So I wanted to mention that as well. It's probably even more important, if we're being honest, the fact that they stuck together as a team. So yeah, they stick together. They don't turn on one another. They don't get frustrated with each other. And ultimately, they have now come out on the other side of this thing, and they are a really, really, really strong team and a really, really, really resilient team because of what they went through early on in the season here. So credit to the coaching staff, like I said. Credit to the leadership group, headed up obviously by longtime captain Alex Ovechkin, and credit to all of the players who all, like I said, stuck with it and continue to put their heads down every day and work. And they worked themselves right out of that early season slump, and now they are, by all accounts, a monster of a hockey team. So that is a good positive place to start things off. But now, of course, we have to get into some injury updates, right? Feels like we've been doing this all season long here, like right from the very first puck drop on the season almost. So yeah, I mean, more injuries to talk about here. The big new one, obviously, is rookie Ryan Leonard, trucked over by Anaheim Ducks defenseman Jacob Trouba. The NHL, they deemed that hit to be clean, even though there was clearly a lot of head contact there. But, this isn't an episode for me to like go on a tirade against the NHL Department of Player Safety. I have done that enough already before. I've talked about it online and in person to people enough as well. But all that I will say, okay, let me just say this. All that I will say is that if Caps forward Tom Wilson makes that exact same hit, okay? Tom Wilson makes that exact same hit that Jacob Trouba just threw on Ryan Leonard. The NHL, if this was Tom Wilson, the NHL undoubtedly, like literally zero doubt, okay, they would find a way to suspend Tom Wilson for several games for that exact same hit. And even if they truly thought that it was clean, they would still invent a way to suspend Tom Wilson for that hit because of the fact that somebody got injured. We have seen that before with the NHL Department of Player Safety and Tom Wilson. And is that the right way to do things, to suspend someone just because someone else got injured on the play? I don't think so, honestly. I've never thought so. Like, I've always said that supplemental discipline should be independent of whether or not somebody got injured. But then, if it's going to be independent of whether or not somebody got injured, then that line of thinking should apply to everybody. And it shouldn't be thrown out the fucking window just because it's Tom Wilson, right? Like, I mean, what are we doing here, people? Like, it's not as if Jacob Trouba is exactly an angel on earth, right? Like, this isn't a clean player that we're talking about here. Everyone acting like this guy is somehow cleaner than Tom Wilson, and that is why it is not disciplined in the same way that they would discipline it if it were Tom Wilson. First of all, that's not the rule, okay? That's not the rule. Read the rule book if you were one of the people who is trying to use that as an excuse for Jacob Trouba and as an excuse for the Department of Player Safety. Like, the rule is not that repeat offenders get suspended more because they are repeat offenders. Your repeat offender status isn't supposed to come into play until they have already decided that a play is suspension worthy. And then they are supposed to take your repeat offender status into account when determining how long to suspend you for. So that is one thing that way too many people are getting wrong online when arguing about this. And then there's, like I said, this weird notion floating around out there that Jacob Trouba is somehow a quote unquote clean player. Huh? Like, I'm sorry. Are we watching the same sport here? Like, I've got news for you. Just because a guy has not been suspended as many times as another guy does not mean that guy A is a cleaner player than guy B, okay? It does not mean that. It means that the league turns their head in the other direction for one guy while unfairly targeting the other. That is what it means, okay? Go look up Jacob Trouba highlights for me. Like, seriously, go look up Jacob Trouba controversial hits, controversial plays, Jacob Trouba non-suspensions. Go look that up. Go look that up for me. It'll be fun, I promise. This guy is not a clean player. Not even close. And now he gets to keep playing, keep on keeping on, while star rookie Ryan Leonard, who was on an absolute tear of point scoring before this hit, Ryan Leonard is going to miss. It just came out today from the Washington Capitals themselves, actually, the official update. He is going to miss 3 to 4 weeks with a shoulder injury. And he also, according to his head coach Spencer Carberry, he also sustained what Carberry termed facial injuries on the play. But Carberry did clarify, for those who were worried about this, Carberry did clarify that they are facial injuries and not a concussion, which is obviously an important distinction to make. Concussions are obviously one of the most unpredictable injuries that a player can sustain, and they can often have long-term lingering effects that never really truly go away, right? And so as such, they're certainly not an injury that you would want. Well, you wouldn't want any player to sustain one, to be honest. But certainly you really wouldn't want your star rookie, who, looks like he could be on track to have a really long and productive career for your franchise. You really would not want that guy to be dealing with a concussion and all of its repercussions so early on in his NHL career. So it is a shoulder injury entree with some facial injuries as a side dish. He will miss, like I said, 3 to 4 weeks of action, which obviously sucks, as, like I said, the kid was on an absolute tear and had really rocketed himself into being one of the front runners for the Calder Trophy as the NHL's top rookie. But while it certainly sucks to lose him for any length of time, you rewatch that hit, and you were very aware of the fact that it could have been a whole lot worse for Ryan Leonard and for the Washington Capitals. So, like a shoulder injury that requires 3 to 4 weeks is a whole lot better than a concussion that can be very unpredictable, right? Or a neck injury or something of that nature, right? So at least with the shoulder being the main component of this, that is going to take the longest time to heal, at least with that, with it being a shoulder injury, at least there's like a set timeline to that, that we know how long he's going to be out for, and that it should be a pretty straightforward recovery, unlike a concussion in which, the recovery for that, like, it can take any amount of time. You really never have any idea, and anything can happen, right? You can have setbacks and things like that. You can have setbacks with any injury, certainly, but, with a concussion, seems to be tripled or quadrupled the chances of that happening. So, and like I said, the repercussions of a concussion, not just for your hockey career going forward, but you never want to see a guy sustain a concussion, playing a game, right? Because whether they're paid to do it or not, hockey is hockey and life is life, and concussions are something that can be pretty terrible, moving forward in your life, not just in your hockey career, right? So glad to see that he avoided a concussion there. So yeah, he's probably going to be out until probably sometime in January, right? And then on the injury front as well for the Caps, we know obviously that Pierre-Luc Dubois is still going to be out for the foreseeable future here. John Carlson and Charlie Lindgren both got back on the ice yesterday for the Caps at practice, or rather Carlson was out there for practice while Lindgren actually skated prior to practice, and then he was not able to stay out there for the practice with the team. But it was reported that he kept his equipment on and simply moved over to a different part of the rink with goaltending coach Scott Murray and continued working on things over there individually. And then they were both, John Carlson and Charlie Lindgren, they were both on the ice again this morning for the Caps morning skate ahead of their game against the Carolina Hurricanes. So the team has said that Carlson will be a game time decision tonight. He was a game time decision before the previous game as well, though, and then he ended up not playing. So we'll see what happens there. But yeah, he will be a game time decision for tonight. While Lindgren definitely remains out. But some of the beat reporters who were watching the morning skate did say that this was a heavier workload that Chucky took on this morning on the ice. And so while he might not be ready to come back yet, it definitely seems as though he is at least trending in a positive direction. So that's good. And then also one more that we had here, not to cause a massive panic here, but Jacob Chychrun as well apparently had to leave practice early yesterday, so a bit of an injury scare there, but the Caps reporters who were in the building said that that was just precautionary for Jacob Chychrun, and that Spencer Carberry said he should be fine to play in tonight's game against the Carolina Hurricanes. So we will keep our fingers crossed on that one for sure, as obviously, you know, that would be a huge blow to lose Jacob Chychrun for any amount of time. I mean, the guy's literally the NHL's leading goal scorer amongst defensemen. So yeah, like, need him healthy, and that's an understatement, right? So yeah, we will cross our fingers on that one for Jacob Chychrun that he is going to be just fine, although it appears as of right now that he will be. So that's the good news. So we'll see what happens moving forward there with that one. All right, babes. You know what? Let me just, for those of you watching in video, let me just take a sip of my tea before we get into this. Because, babes, I have been avoiding it for as long as possible here, for about 17 minutes or so here. I have been avoiding this discussion, but we have to talk about it, right? So let's get to this ridiculous rumor about Quinn Hughes possibly being traded to our Washington Capitals. I'm not going to lie, like, this rumor just makes absolutely zero sense from a Washington Capitals perspective. It really does. So let's break it down here. All right. So Quinn Hughes, you know, obviously a great player, better than great. He's one of the best defensemen in the entire NHL, and especially when you look at offensive defensemen, right? He's awesome. So obviously this is not about not wanting Quinn Hughes, right? But rather it's about, does Quinn Hughes make sense for the Caps specifically? And in my mind anyway, the answer is overwhelmingly no. So let's break it down, and I will explain why I'm saying that so that all of the people out there who rightfully think that Quinn Hughes is awesome don't think I'm crazy. And for what it's worth, so far, I have not been able to find one single Capitals fan who thinks that trading for Quinn Hughes, given what it would cost, would be a good idea for the Washington Capitals. Every single Capitals fan that I have seen online and in real life is very much against this. So let's break it down, and let's break down why it really doesn't make any sense at all. First of all, and I just alluded to it, it's the cost of the trade, right? And I don't mean the cost as in like what you would have to pay this guy when his current contract expires in a year and a half, you know, assuming that he would even re-sign with you and not just defect to New Jersey to play with his brothers the first chance that he got. But no, it's the actual asset cost in a trade, as in what the Vancouver Canucks are going to want back. And, you know, the first person who I could find going on record pondering this as a possibility, you know, that maybe the Caps could trade for Quinn Hughes, this person threw out there into the ether just an absolutely unhinged return from the Washington Capitals going back to the Vancouver Canucks. So this person wanted the Caps to give up, get ready for this one, make sure you're sitting down, okay? This person wanted the Caps to give up Connor McMichael, Ryan Leonard, plus 2 first-round picks. Okay? To which I said something along the lines of the fact that trade would have most Caps fans literally burning their jerseys and lighting Capital One Arena on fire in protest. That ain't it. Like, that is just an absolutely asinine return for a guy who has a year and a half left on his contract. And then, like I alluded to, he is probably defecting to New Jersey the first chance that he gets. Like, he and his brothers have been very open about the fact that they want to play on a team together and that they are going to play on a team together. And given that, you know, 2 of the 3 brothers are already members of the New Jersey Devils, well, you can see what the problem would be there from a Caps perspective, right? It is the same problem that the Vancouver Canucks are facing right now. And so, you know, given that you can't guarantee yourselves that he would re-sign with you, because unfortunately a new contract wouldn't even be able to be negotiated at this point because he's not even eligible for that until July 1st of next year. So at most, you could have like a wink, wink, nudge, nudge handshake agreement, which of course can always be broken by Quinn Hughes at any time. So the risk is just totally not worth it from a Washington Capitals perspective, especially since the Caps are already building something really, really good here. Like, they're already a very good team, and they are going to continue to be a very good team for many years here because of the core of young players and the highly rated prospect pool that they have accumulated for themselves. They don't need to go out there and be desperate and make desperate moves to win right now, right? Like, they could already very conceivably win right now, even without Quinn Hughes. Like, they have a very, very, very good team. They don't need to be desperate, which brings me to my next point, which was this notion from this person who floated this trade proposal of, you know, Connor McMichael, Ryan Leonard, and 2 first-round picks for Quinn Hughes. And then, by the way, it was also picked up on and continued to be purported by Elliot Friedman, among others. You know, this notion that the Washington Capitals will do anything and everything to try to win the Stanley Cup again while they still have Alex Ovechkin on their roster. And it's like, I don't understand how these guys can tweet this out, because it's like, if you are a Capitals person, if you are a Capitals fan who has been paying attention, right, and who pays attention to the things that this organization says and does and to the way that they conduct themselves, then you know that that is just a patently untrue, patently false statement for somebody to make about this organization. Like, no, they will not do absolutely anything to try to win the Stanley Cup just in the next year or the next year and a half or whatever. And, you know, the whole future of the team be damned. Like, no, that is not how they operate. That is not how they have operated throughout these last few years of Alex Ovechkin's career. They give a fuck about the future. They do. They give a big fuck about the future. They give multiple big fucks about the future. It is not, you know, win while Ovi is here and everything else be damned. It never has been that way. And so for people who actually make a living spouting this stuff, you know, to go get on their little phones there and tweet that out, that the Caps would conceivably do it because all they care about is right now and they don't care about the future at all, that's insane. It's false and it's insane. And like, what I had tweeted back was that, you know, that Caps management said out loud after last season's trade deadline that they were not willing to mortgage their future by trading away their highly rated prospects and young players. And that was when Alex Ovechkin still had two potential playoff runs left remaining on his current contract, that they still were not willing to do that even then. So why on earth now, almost a year later, why on earth now? And now that he only has one potential playoff run remaining on his current contract with the Capitals, why would they be okay with doing that all of a sudden now and mortgaging the future now when they weren't okay with it just last March at last season's trade deadline? Like, it just makes no sense. Even when Alex Ovechkin's contract had an extra year, you know, an extra kick at the can remaining on it last season at last season's trade deadline, they still did not want to do that. They were not willing to do that. They did not do that. And so it just makes absolutely no sense why they would suddenly be okay with it now when they weren't okay with it just last season. And like I said, they had literally double the chances remaining to win with Alex Ovechkin on their roster if they had pulled the trigger on a deal like that at last season's trade deadline versus doing it this season when his contract is about to expire at the end of this season. It makes no sense. Zero. Like, I'm just going to be honest. It makes zero sense. So I don't get why people, tweet this stuff out to begin with. I don't get why people pick it up and run with it. There's certain even Capitals blogs that are trying to run with this. I don't get it. It's just, if you are, like I said, if you are a Capitals fan, a Capitals person who's been paying attention to this team over the last several years, that is not how they operate. That is not how they have ever operated, even coming here now to the end of Alex Ovechkin's career. It is not the way that they do business. So I don't know. Make of it what you will. And anyway, like, there are a few other reasons why trading for Quinn Hughes would not make much sense for the Caps. And a big one, right, is that they are already absolutely loaded on the left side of their defense. Like, as it currently stands, you have already got Jacob Chychrun, Martin Fehervary, and Rasmus Sandin. Those are your regular three guys on the left side. All three of those guys are outstanding NHL players. That is one of the very best left sides in the entire National Hockey League already, if not the very best. And all three of those guys are already on long-term contracts with the Washington Capitals and on pretty damn affordable cap hits for what they bring as well. And like, a new contract for Quinn Hughes is going to break the bank, right? Like, that is going to cost an exorbitant amount of money. That's going to cost exceedingly more than any of those guys that are being paid by the Caps on their current locked in, cost controlled long-term deals, right? Like I said, Jacob Chychrun, Martin Fehervary, Rasmus Sandin, locked in, cost controlled long-term deals. Anyone who has watched Jacob Chychrun for his, roughly season and a half as a Washington Capital so far is Quinn Hughes really that much better than Jacob Chychrun that you were willing to sell the farm to get him? Like, never mind the eyeball test, which tells me, by the way, that Jacob Chychrun does a lot more things well than Quinn Hughes does. Quinn Hughes does a couple of things very well. Jacob Chychrun does more well than Quinn Hughes does. Like, Jake Chychrun is an awesome two-way guy, right? He can defend. He defends really, really well, actually. He defends really, really hard. He's physical. He throws big hits. He's an intimidating presence back there on your blue line. And not just offensively. That's the key, right? He's a more well-rounded player than Quinn Hughes is, I guess is my point. And then you look at the stats too. Like, I'm talking about the eyeball test. When you look at the stats as well, like, Jacob Chychrun is the highest scoring defenseman in the entire National Hockey League this season, goals-wise. He had 20 fucking goals last season in his first season as a Washington Capital, as a defenseman. 20 goals is a lot of goals for a defenseman in the National Hockey League. And Chychrun is a plus 24 this season. That is second only to Cale Makar as a defenseman. So I'm not even going to tell you what Quinn Hughes' plus minus is this season, because obviously he plays for a bad Vancouver Canucks team. And so I don't think it's entirely fair to put all of that on him. But at the same time, the team is bad. You are the captain and the team's best player. So it is at least partially your fault that they stink, right? He's -9. I'll just say it. He's -9. I said I wasn't going to say it, and then I said it. But yeah, I mean, this isn't to shit on Quinn Hughes, but like, focusing on Jacob Chychrun, like I said, he's a plus 24 this season. When you look at all of the underlying metrics, all of those underlying numbers that, can give you some really good insight beyond the traditional stats, right? When you look at all of those underlying metrics for Jacob Chychrun, he has been the second most valuable defenseman in the entire National Hockey League this season. So most valuable as in, like, how much he contributes to his team's success. And obviously the Washington Capitals are at the top of the standings. He has been a very, very, very important part of that. And again, second only to some guy named Cale Makar. So that is pretty good if you are Jacob Chychrun. So again, it's not I don't want to get into, like, I'm not trying to shit on Quinn Hughes. Again, I think Quinn Hughes is a phenomenal hockey player. Phenomenal. I just don't think that he fits in here with what the Caps already have. And I think that anyone who thinks that he's like, this much better, like for those of you listening in audio only, I'm raising my hand way above my head. For anyone who thinks that he is like that much better than Jakob Chychrun, it's not that big of a difference. Like they play the game differently. Like I said, Quinn Hughes is kind of more offense all the time, right? Jakob Chychrun, I think he is able to bring that offense while still being just as good defensively. He's more of a two-way guy. So to me, if I'm being like 1,000,000% honest right now for this team, I would rather have Jakob Chychrun because we already know that he fits in here. The chemistry bit is another part. Like I'll get to that as well. But yeah, we already know that he fits in here. We already know that he looks really good in Washington Capitals colors, right? Like he is rocking it here. He is killing it. Ever since he was traded to the Caps, he has absolutely flourished. And he's a really, really important player on this team. And so anyway, there's other points I want to make here, but it all ties in together. So we've got Jakob Chychrun already offensively on the left side. That was my point. And then, what all of these pundits in the mainstream media seem to be forgetting as well is that we also have Cole freaking Hudson coming soon. And, soon as in probably literally at the end of this regular season in time for any potential playoff run that the Caps may go on. Cole Hudson, who is projected to literally be Quinn Hughes at the NHL level. And, if you've watched his older brother Lane play with the Montreal Canadiens, then you know that is probably pretty accurate, as Lane Hudson is unreal. And his younger brother Cole is, by all accounts, just an even better version of the same player that his older brother Lane is for Montreal. Cole is doing things at the amateur and world junior levels that even his older brother Lane didn't accomplish, like just putting up absolutely crazy, stupid numbers. And so, like, as it is, right? As it is, you were already looking ahead to when Cole Hudson joins this team, presumably, like I said, right near the end of this regular season for the Caps, right before the Stanley Cup playoffs are set to begin. You were already looking at that, and you were already saying, like, oh man, like one of these guys is going to have to play on their offside, right? Because the Caps are already so absolutely stacked on the left side of their defense, like I mentioned. So that's one thing, right? And then the second thing, like I said, all of these things tie in together. So that's one thing. And then the second thing, another problem with a trade for Quinn Hughes would be the allocation of ice time amongst these guys. So like I'm just talking about Jakob Chychrun a minute ago, right? Quinn Hughes, great player, phenomenal player. To be able to give him the amount of ice time that he gets, like with the Vancouver Canucks, to be able to put up those numbers, you have to take ice time away from other people who are already here on this team, already succeeding here on this team, right? Jakob Chychrun's a good example. Do you want Jakob Chychrun getting less ice time so that Quinn Hughes can have more? Jakob Chychrun's here. He's killing it here. He's rocking it here. We already know that he fits with this team. He's killing it. The team's at the top of the standings. So, like, these are just things to think about, like, because to give one guy more ice time, you have to take it away from somebody else, right? So, like, your entire current left side, like I said, is already signed to long-term contracts. So, like, you literally just re-signed Jakob Chychrun, like I said, to an 8-year extension. So he's going to be here for a long, long time. Martin Ferravari as well to a 7-year extension. Rasmus Sandin as well is on a 5-year deal. They really like him as well, the Caps do, and they should really like him because he's a very good player, very good defenseman. Cole Hudson coming, like I said, and will presumably be a very big part of this franchise's future. And then assuming, and all indications, by the way, are that this is going to happen. Assuming that you re-sign John Carlson, you start running out of ice time real fast here. And it's also like, how many offensive defensemen do you really need, right? And John Carlson actually fits into that better than Quinn Hughes does, just simply because John Carlson is right-handed and the Caps have such a surplus of left-handed defensemen. So there's always only going to be 60 minutes of ice time to go around in any National Hockey League game, right? Unless it goes to overtime, obviously, and then it's 65 minutes. You know who we could use? We could use somebody for the fucking shootouts. That's what we could use. Anyways, hockey games, always going to be 60 minutes, 65 at the most. But like the point is that there is limited ice time to go around. This is the point that I was making. There's limited ice time to go around. The Caps already have a very talented, very mobile, very strong defense core. I just don't see why you would need to add Quinn Hughes to that when you're not getting him for free, right? Like, he is going to cost a king's ransom. And so it's just not a good fit, in my opinion, and so it's not worth it, I guess, is what I'm getting at and what I'm trying to say. Like, again, great player. He's a great player. He's one of the best players in the National Hockey League. He's more of what we already have in a lot of ways, right? So like I said, for me, not a good fit. And so because of that, it's not worth it, because you are, like I said, going to have to pay a king's ransom for this guy. And then the last thing would just be the chemistry, on the ice and within the locker room. Like, that's the other thing that you would worry about when making a trade like this. I mean, the Washington Capitals, by all accounts, have the very best locker room in the entire National Hockey League. It is a really, really tight-knit group. They are more like family, literally, than like teammates who just get paid to be there, right? And Alex Ovechkin, John Carlson, Tom Wilson, like, these guys built that, and the younger players on the team have come in and completely bought into that too. And it is magical. It really, really, really is. So you always worry. Right? And I'm sure Quinn Hughes is probably a fine guy. Like, I'm not saying anything against him. I'm just saying that you always worry when making a huge trade like that for a player of that caliber. You always worry that it could potentially disrupt the chemistry of the locker room in some way, right? Or even just disrupt the chemistry on the ice with ice time and things like that. Guys being put into different roles than they were in before, that they were succeeding in before, right? Again, the team is good right now. They are very good. So I don't know how much you need to mess with that. I'm of the mind that, like I said, we've got a really, really good thing going here. Why don't we just leave it alone for the most part, right? Let the young guys continue to develop, keep the same team culture that is working beautifully, and just keep winning hockey games, and then see what we can do when the playoffs roll around, right? Like, this team should not be desperate to win right now. Like I said, like, they're very much set up for long-term success here. Any success that would happen this season would be ahead of schedule and a pleasant bonus at this point, right? A pleasant bonus. So this team, this team is going to be very, very good for a very, very long time. I guess that's my point. Like, just let it cook, baby. Just let it cook. Just let it cook. Let's not mess anything up here that we've got going on. And let's not do anything crazy, like trading away fucking Ryan Leonard and Connor McMichael. Oh my God. Like, no. I'm going to end the episode on that. No. Okay. All right, babes. That is going to be it for this one. Another episode 111 of the Jenaya Talks Caps podcast. Thank you all so much for listening or watching, like I said, if you're on YouTube. Thank you all so much for being here, is my point. It's been a lot of fun, as it always is here. Make sure that you stay tuned for another episode coming up next week. Click on that subscribe button if you have not already done so. We would love to have you along here with us for this ride throughout the entire regular season and hopefully the Stanley Cup playoffs as well, assuming that the Caps make it there. They're in good shape right now to be able to do that. So yeah, click on that subscribe button so that you don't miss any future episodes. And like I said, we'd love to have you along here with us. Thank you all again so much for being here. It has been an absolute blast, as it always is. And babes, until next time, and as always, this is Jenaya Talks Caps signing off. As always, baby, let's go Caps.